ability to release repellent odors from its sweat glands and retreating to the water to evade its predators has provided this antelope with a reliable escape mechanism. But some of the best laid plans can sometimes backfire, as Elman Mhlongo observed.
We got a call from a game driver telling us a waterbuck was inside the water at a dam. So we rushed there and saw this waterbuck hiding in the water. The lioness was just waiting at the edge of the dam. She must have thought it was very deep.
But the waterbuck is about to make a fatal mistake.
But then the young waterbuck starts standing, and if the waterbuck's standing there, the lioness sees that it's not that deep, so the female lioness runs straight into the water.
But this drenched feline is sorely mistaken if she believes she can enjoy her well-earned spoils alone.
Then she brings it outside the water, but she doesn't pull it completely out because she's scared for the other lions. All the female lions just run straight into the water and start fighting.
Capable of killing prey as large as elephant, giraffe and hippo, the lions take no time in savagely dismembering this ill-fated waterbuck. Contrary to their reputation, some felines are not afraid of water, just like the leopard. Known to be a strong swimmer and fish being part of its diet, this shrewd assassin doesn't mind getting its paws wet.
I was on holiday in South Africa visiting in the Kruger National Park, myself and a friend. We were actually on our way out on one of the major exit routes. We spotted the leopard. It was probably about 20 meters from the road. He didn't mind the vehicles standing there. Initially, it was just a nice sighting, and then we realized that the leopard was busy doing something. After seeing the first catfish that he brought out of the water, we realized that the leopard is actually busy catching fish. But he made a playful game of it. At one stage, he actually jumped into the water, and he was only up to his knees, so it couldn't have been all that deep. The boulders obviously created a small catchment area for water, and I would assume that that water was starting to dry up, and the catfish was bundling together in the remainder of the pool, and this was obviously a unique opportunity for the leopard. The catfish that you see on the footage is only the tip of the iceberg. During the whole process, we counted approximately 14 catfish, and he stashed it in various locations. We were very surprised. We knew this was a lucky sighting and a nice closure to a pleasant stay in the Kruger National Park.
Animals hunting outside their usual range of strategies is not uncommon in the natural world. In fact, some creatures have adapted their techniques to hunt in places you would least expect, as Rian Venter discovered in the Komati Valley.
A couple of friends got together and we decided to go for a fishing trip. A lot of time passed and we hadn't had any success. I got pretty bored. So I went for a walk with my camera just to see what I could find. I saw this spider that was perched on a rock with its feet in the water, and I mean, obviously I didn't know what it was doing until I saw that the pond was filled with these little tadpoles. The longer I sat there and just waited and watched, you could see that it was planning some kind of attack. It moved into the center of this little pond. It was perfectly balanced, hardly anything touching, just its feet.
Fishing spiders live on more or less permanent water. They can balance on the top of the water because, water has a surface tension, and their tarsi, which are the ends of their legs, have got little brushes of hair on them, and that spreads their weight on the surface of the water. And as you can see, they're very nimble. They can run on the surface of the water, and they can actually jump.
At first, I thought there was no chance the spider was going to be successful. I'm not sure if it was the shade that it was casting or just its little feet in the water that might have looked like food to the tadpoles, but one swam right underneath it, and before you knew it, in a flash, it had one.
Web-building spiders use their webs to be able to feel anything that happens on that web. So they use vibrations to know where their prey is. But fishing spiders use the water and they feel the vibrations of anything in or on the water the same way, but it's on a horizontal plane. They sit there with their legs sticking out and they sometimes wiggle their toes a little bit. And of course, you know how inquisitive fish are, or tadpoles. They come up to the surface of the water and zap, the spider gets them. These spiders can strike probably faster than a puff adder, so that when they feel something under the water, their jaws actually go through the surface and they inject venom almost straight away into their prey.
Once it had the tadpole, it moved to the edge of the water, still managing to keep itself afloat, and started to feed off this tadpole while it was actually still alive.
Fishing spiders need to eat quite often. They've got a very high metabolic rate for spiders. A lot of spiders don't need to eat often at all. They inject the venom and their digestive enzymes into their prey, and it sort of liquefies the inside, and then they lick it up again.
It was absolutely amazing. It was something awesome to see.
They'll eat small fish, they'll eat small frogs, tadpoles, in fact, almost anything that they can overpower.
We were the ones that were supposed to be there fishing, but at the end of the day, we were no match for the spider.
Despite their small, stocky frame, reclusive lifestyle and comical trot, honey badgers are renowned for their fearlessness and ferocity. With their formidable claws and acute sense of smell, honey badgers are efficient hunters. But what happens when they're pitted against the largest snake in Africa? Pythons can grow to lengths greater than 4 meters and are capable of killing and consuming prey as large as a human. Squeezing its prey so tight it actually stops their blood from flowing, this rotund reptile is a deadly predator. But it does have a weakness. It's cold-blooded.
I was working in a reserve in the Lowveld in the Sabi Sands area. I heard over the radio that there was a honey badger attacking a python. I arrived at the sighting and I could see the honey badger running around in the grass. And then I eventually saw the snake. It was quite camouflaged in the long grass, and the size of it was immense.
This is a southern African python, and I would estimate that in total length it would be about 4.4 meters. So it's an adult. Probably be about 10 years old, and it would weigh between 30, maybe just a little over 40 kilograms. The honey badger weighs probably about 10 kilograms.
4 times smaller and lighter than this colossal python, confrontation would appear suicidal.
This honey badger harassing this enormous snake looked out of sorts, but its reputation precedes it, you know, they're fearless little creatures. And this honey badger kept harassing it and biting it. It was tiring it out. I could see that it was taking a lot of energy for the snake to defend itself. The honey badger was just too quick.
Obviously, snakes are reptiles and they're cold-blooded. So when they come out at night, they're not able to control their body temperature. The body temperature will go down, and that has a profound effect on the physiology of the muscles of the snake. So the snake won't be able to perform. It won't be able to move as fast. It won't have the same power, and it'll fatigue more quickly.
At one stage, the snake's tail came up, and because it was so disorientated and probably in a hell of a lot of shock and pain, it struck at its own tail.
And that's a very common behavior that we see with southern African pythons. If they're stressed, immediately the tail gets coiled. Snakes don't have particularly good vision. Obviously just saw that tail move past in its line of sight, and it just bit.
tried to climb up a small tree, but it was so weak it couldn't get away. Eventually, after about 10 or 15 minutes of watching this, the honey badger started to bite the snake quite savagely. The honey badger was just disemboweling the poor creature, bit it in the torso area and started pulling out intestines and things like that. It was quite a traumatic sight and it wasn't very pleasant to see, but it is exactly what happens in nature.
Honey badgers are renowned for killing snakes. Was probably just trying to escape through the entire event.
Even the urban jungle harbours a handful of unlikely pests and predators. The pigeon has a 340-degree field of vision, and its brain processes visual information 3 times faster than a human's. Perfect for the fast-paced inner-city bustle and to stay vigilant for any lurking predators. But as Martin van Veerden witnessed in Cape Town, nearly every city has a dirty rat.
We were on holiday in Cape Town, and my wife and I arrived at the Cape Town Castle. We then realized that we didn't have our cameras with us. We turned around and heard this noise. When we looked under the car, we saw a rat that was busy attacking a pigeon. It was pulling it around, backwards and forwards. The pigeon started flapping its wings, trying to get away. At one stage, my wife wanted to kick the rat or chase it away to save the pigeon, but I told her just to leave it. Then the rat climbed onto the pigeon's back, and we could see how the feathers were falling out as the rat was trying to bite it on the neck. The rat then disappeared under the car. For us, it was a big thing to see this event. If we hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it, because we weren't aware that a rat could do something like this.
Most bird species rely on aerial hideouts for protection, but not all. Found throughout southern Africa, the spotted dikkop is a delicate and peaceful bird, notorious for building their nests on the ground. Understandably, this ground floor nursery does require a great deal of protection, especially from the largest species of lizard in southern Africa, the water monitor. This dragon-like reptile is a very real threat to both the unborn hatchlings and the dikkop parents themselves. Defenseless against the water monitor's razor-sharp claws and powerful bite, these dainty birds will have to rely on brain over brawn, as wildlife filmmaker Jürgen Josefowitz observed.
I was in the Satara area in the Kruger National Park. I saw this water monitor walk along the edge of the pool. And I saw the dikkop pair. I'd seen before that they had a nest there with 2 eggs in it. You can say that monitors are virtual egg eaters. They dig anything up. They go for crocodile eggs. They eat small birds. They eat snakes. And something really fantastic came out of this little scene. You had the 2 little birds against the big water monitor, and they were defending the nest. They made a barrier out of their wings. They opened the wings and prevented virtually the water monitor seeing the nest. It was a passive defense. They herded him in another direction. This was unique, because what can a bird do against a predator? I must say I've never seen this kind of protection in other bird species. They protected it with all the head. No hits, no nothing, but he's just shaking them off. He's herding you off and say, look, you're not interested in being here. You should go that way. You know, go along here. This is a much nicer way. Go a bit, go a bit. And the monitor went for it. He just left. The little things are also fantastic. It's not only the big ones.
Parental care is vital during the early months of childhood. the lesser-masked weaver not only builds its intricate nest teetering on the flimsy end of branches, but also over water to further deter potential predators. But even this wasn't enough to prevent a massacre, as Ben Arnoldi observed.
It was the middle of February 2004. I camped at Pilanesberg and it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. The first time I saw them, they were on the other side of the dam. But just as baboons do, they play around. Slowly they came over to my side of the dam. The first female climbed into the tree and she took hold of the first nest. I suppose that the other baboons saw what she was doing and also started. They took over and then started to pull everything apart. They'd sit on the thick branches, take hold of the flexible branches from which the nests are hanging and lifted them up to see if there are any snakes inside, and then stuck their paws inside and pulled out the weavers and the babies.
What we see in this clip is a perfect example of baboons as an opportunist, taking advantage of a nutritional bonanza. So while baboons spend most of their time eating plants, which has low quality nutrition, and what we have here is the baboon accessing protein, a meat source.
The one nest had a big female inside, and they just ate her stomach and threw the rest away into the water.
They eat the most nutritious part of that fledgling, which is the abdomen region, and then throw the rest away, the wings and the backbone, which is less nutritious. And of course, the weavers got very little defense against this. They build their nests at the end of a flimsy branch to prevent large predators from being able to access, but they're not counting on the dexterity and the intelligence of something like a primate.
All in all, they took about 20 minutes. Each nest was torn apart, eggs out, everything cleared out, until there was not one nest left. After they were finished, they disappeared into the bush. And it's something you know happens, but you very rarely see it. I was just there at the right place and at the right time.
Their diet would still consist predominantly of vegetation and include, where the opportunity presented itself, some high-quality meat. And a balanced diet is really part and parcel of being a baboon.
Specialised hunting techniques are often honed by parental guidance to ensure their young can ultimately fend for themselves. With only its first 2 years accompanied by its mother before becoming a solitary predator, the leopard must take every opportunity it gets to practice hunting, no matter how small the prey may be.
It was the first morning of our trip, and there were about 8 of us in the vehicle. We'd been out for about 45 minutes or an hour when we saw the leopard for the first time. The rangers said to us that the leopard was about 19 months old. It still hadn't left its mother, although that particular morning we didn't see the mother. It was playing, it was climbing trees and running around and having a great time. Initially, when the leopard jumped onto the branch, we didn't know there was a nest of oxpeckers there, and neither did the leopard. The leopard suddenly seemed to hear something. We saw it moving towards the end of the branch, and we didn't know what the leopard was trying to do. But obviously what it was trying to do was to get into the nest. I'm not sure if you can notice from the footage, but the branch is overhanging a water pan. And we actually thought the branch might break and the leopard might fall into the water. We realized that what we were seeing was something absolutely unique. Then the first bird flew out of the branch. The leopard caught it. In fact, the bird was still squawking and didn't kill the bird immediately. It was just like a cat playing with a mouse. And eventually the leopard did kill the bird. And finished eating it. After that, it then went back to the end of the branch, virtually repeated the process again, and caught a second bird. It really looked like it was just learning how to hunt, finding its feet and enjoying itself, quite frankly. We do have some cats at home, and sometimes their behavior is very similar to that of a leopard. We were absolutely thrilled, and it certainly made for a wonderful trip.
Learning to live without family is an inevitable affair in most species. As teenage elephant bulls come of age, they leave the herd adolescent, audacious, and often alone. So when witnessing a young elephant bull in the wild, they should never be underestimated, and all precautions must be taken, which includes staying in your vehicle.
I was filming this lone bull elephant, magnificent specimen, a great big bull on his own. And I was able to get quite close to him because he was in the water and I was up on the bank. He was 20 meters away in the water, so I felt reasonably safe that he couldn't get to me in a hurry. At one stage he got a bit agitated and he sort of lunged towards me. So I packed up and I got back in the vehicle. I'd been driving around for some time filming other things, and I came upon the same elephant. And he was up against a tree having a scratch. I got out the vehicle, set up my tripod, and got myself organized, ready to start filming him. I assumed he was aware of me. I was in a great big white van. And he looked at me and I thought he's accepted my presence. Perhaps the wind changed and he got my scent, but suddenly his whole demeanor changed and he started to come towards me. Boy, my heart was pounding and my palms were pretty wet. When he first lunged towards me, I had to duck round behind the car. My only thought was to hide behind the vehicle. I suppose I wasn't really thinking about what he could do to the vehicle to get at me. And there was definitely a time when I thought, what if he decides to destroy this vehicle? He wandered away, stopped about 30 meters away, turned around and kind of gave me a last glance, and carried on as if nothing had happened. I was relieved that it had all ended so well, but certainly a scary moment and not one that I'd enjoy having again.
Safety in numbers is key to survival in the wild. But even with the extra eyes and ears, the arrival of young can be a testing time for most herds, as many predators watch and wait for that perfect opportunity to attack.
In December 2004, I went with my whole family on a road trip to Namibia. We left early that morning and we stopped at all the waterholes along the way. When we arrived at Andoni, there were a lot of wildebeest and zebra around the waterhole, but none of them were drinking. The animals were quite skittish. We then realized why. We saw a lioness that was lying down nearby in the mud. That's when we noticed a wildebeest calf running around, and we assumed that it must be looking for its mother, or it had lost its mother. The poor thing came to the car and then ran to the elephant. It went to drink, and that's when the lioness stood up. But you could see that she was really struggling. And that's when we saw the huge wound on her side. She was walking to the waterhole with great difficulty. I could see she was in a lot of pain. But she made sure that the water pipe was between her and the calf, so the calf couldn't see her. And when the calf dropped its head to drink, the lioness got all her strength together and attacked. She definitely saw it as an easy chance to get some meat. It was a lot of mixed emotions. It was a calf, so obviously you feel sorry for the calf, and you just want to help it. But when the lioness stood up and you saw that she had an injury, you automatically feel sorry for her. But at the end of the day, it's nature. I've never seen anything like that before.
At night, from their slumber, hungry and ready to feed. Prey must be even more vigilant as predator owl falls upon the African bush. Not a place to be, alone.
I was with my family and one other group of family friends, and we were doing a 3-week tour through Namibia. I just finished supper and we decided to take a walk up to the watering hole, and we're hoping to see some carnivores this night. I really enjoy going out at night because there's a whole lot of different creatures that come out that you don't see during the day. We heard crashing sounds through the bushes and saw a herd of zebra run by. I was getting very excited, just trying to switch the camera onto night mode, trying to make sure I had everything right. And then suddenly a zebra foal appeared in front of the lights, and it was chased by a group of hyenas. 2 of the hyenas lashed onto the back part of the baby zebra. They just started slowly eating it while it was still alive. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I think the hyenas had surprised them at night, forcing the rest of the herd to run while they singled out the foal, which was a much easier target for them to take down. They got it to the ground and started taking bites out of it there. They were just tearing strips of meat off its back. The foal was completely alone. I felt pretty terrible to watch it, but at the same time it's nature and they're just doing their best to survive.
But the abandoned zebra foal refused to give up.
It surprised me how long the foal actually stood on its legs. I mean, this is 3 or 4 hyenas going at a baby zebra foal, so I was amazed at how long it lasted. I'd say it was about 10 minutes before the hyenas had eventually subdued the zebra. The game rangers there were saying that it's not unusual for predators to chase animals into spotlight because it blinds them and confuses them. And eventually, I think from sheer exhaustion and loss of blood and shock, it just collapsed next to the water. I felt very sorry for it. I wanted to shout and chase them away so it would survive, but at the same time, got to let nature take its course. And eventually they killed it. It stirred up some emotions in me. It was quite tragic to see them going at the baby zebra. I definitely think if the herd was there, they could have possibly pushed the hyena off it. I've been going to game reserves since I was very small, and I've always been hoping to see a kill, but I never imagined I'd see hyenas actually taking down an animal.
Africa's prey must work hard to stay alive. But every now and again, it's time for the prey to fight back. One fellow African resident that faces danger head-on is the warthog. With its lower tusks longer and sharper than a lion's canines, this bold little suid may not have the looks, but it certainly has the punch. So when this family sounder of warthogs stumbled across a coalition of cheetah, it wasn't just tourist Saki Kutsia who was in for a shock.
Me and my wife were together on this trip. We were driving down this dirt road next to the Sabi River. There were these 4 little warthogs running next to the car. The little mother, father, and the 2 babies. They were just trotting along. All of a sudden, they swerved in front of the car and they went into the bushes to graze. That was when we saw the cheetahs lying under a tree. I really thought that today was the day they're going to be lunch. The warthogs just carried on grazing and slowly getting very close to these cheetahs. One of the cheetahs got up and chased after the warthogs. They kind of looked at each other. And the cheetah went back to his buddies. My wife was adamant that we had to leave. I told her, no, we need to stay. Something's going to happen here, but it's not always something you want to see. It turned out to be quite different. The warthogs teamed up and like one pack, they chased into these cheetahs. It was unbelievable. It's not every day that you see a cheetah being chased by a warthog, which normally happens the other way around. It was really amazing. It was quite funny. I would also run away. It was as if the warthogs were teasing the cheetahs.
With one last defiant taunt at the cheetahs, this brave warthog rejoins his family.
These warthogs were fearless, brave, audacious, unbelievable.
Facing up to your greatest enemy is a huge risk, and especially when the predator in question is a 180-kilogram lioness. Although the wildebeest has slender, spindly hindquarters, this clown-faced antelope has an incredibly strong and well-built front. So it wasn't just Herman du Toit who was in for a ride.
We were on a visit at Pilansberg. Towards the late afternoon, we decided to take a bit of a short drive up towards the eastern border of the park. There's a place called Salty Springs. And my wife actually was first to spot the action, and I had to maneuver the car off the road to get a decent shot. And there was this lioness clutching onto the neck and holding onto the nose of a wildebeest, and the wildebeest was trying its best to shake it off. And it was jumping up and down, standing its ground and shaking, trying to get rid of the lioness. My wife actually was the one that said, can't we do something to help this poor wildebeest? My wife and myself were quite anxious to see the outcome of this tussle. At that stage, it looked like it was a fairly even match. I didn't know who was going to get the upper hand. Until eventually the lion got a little bit tired and the wildebeest started trampling the lioness. I was quite amazed to see the strength of the wildebeest, that it actually could stay on its legs and how it managed to lift the lioness off the ground. But the lioness didn't have a good enough grip, and in that way he managed to shake off the lioness. Then the wildebeest started chasing. We travel a lot to nature reserves and wildlife places, but this was actually the first time that we saw something so exciting, and it was quite amazing to see that the wildebeest actually got away.
At over 2 meters high and weighing up to 7 tons, elephants are the largest land mammals on Earth. But when young elephant bulls become intoxicated with hormones, this enormous mass can become a deadly weapon with devastating results.
My husband and I went camping in the Kruger National Park. And late the one afternoon we went for a drive. Next to the road we came across 2 elephants standing very closely against each other. And we stopped to have a look because to us it looked as if they were playing. The playing, unfortunately, very soon turned into a vicious fight.
I think what we're seeing is not actually a fight between 2 bulls. But an attack of one bull on another, generally when bulls are fighting, they face one another head on, because that's the easiest way to defend yourself, and that's where you have the greatest punch.
It looked as if it was picking up the elephant on the ground with the tusks. The elephant just threw it down on the ground again. It was so vicious.
We don't know what led up to the situation that we're seeing here, but very clearly the bull that is being attacked is not in a good condition. And I think what is happening is the other bull, who appears to be a slightly younger bull, is unsure of what is going on. He's frustrated, he's possibly disorientated. This other bull is not responding to him. And as a result of that, he pushes this other bull, and the bull just falls down and doesn't get up, which again suggests that there's something very wrong with this bull. Any conflict is potentially dangerous. A bull in must is angry enough or hormonal enough to actually confront another bull to the point that you injure him for it to be potentially life-threatening to another bull. It's quite possible that he's actually really confused. He starts walking around the other bull. At one point, he actually lays his trunk over this bull. What he's doing is he's trying to work out for himself what is actually going on.
And the elephant kept on trumpeting.
The calls that we're hearing are not aggressive calls. They're not a sense of triumph that this bull has. They're distress calls. They're confused calls. They're almost cries for assistance.
When the rest of the herd came, they made a circle around the elephant lying on the ground.
The response that a herd shows to the loss or the death of another elephant depends on the relationship that that elephant had with the herd. The herd doesn't have a strong enough bond with the bull that has fallen down to actually come to his assistance. They're trying to work out what it is that is causing the excitement in this younger bull. When a bull comes into must, his testosterone levels increase substantially, typically 3 times the normal benchmark. And so he just becomes this raging male hormone, which clearly has some impact on his behavior and his mood.
It was a very, very vicious thing to see, because people think about elephants as these big animals, can't do anything wrong. So this opened my eyes, and I really don't want to see something like this again.
Elephants can drink up to 60 gallons of water a day and may travel up to 200 kilometers in order to find it. During times of drought, tensions can understandably flare when this resource is in such high demand, which can lead to violent conflicts, as wildlife filmmaker Don Percival experienced.
We were filming a reality wildlife show from the Hyde Safari Lodge in Hwange National Park, Zimbabwe. At the time, we were filming 2 contestants from the Netherlands and the UK who had never been to Africa before. We wanted to get to this waterhole to see if they could find some animals, in particular a leopard. It was a pretty peaceful scene. It was the end of October, so it was extremely hot and very, very dry.
Access to water is not only about drinking. Elephants use water to thermoregulate as well. And so whether or not they're visiting water holes depends not only on what they need to drink, but on the temperature, on the exposure to heat.
And next thing, this other herd of elephant pitched up and the dynamic just changed. You could just feel the tension.
What happens when elephant herds meet depends very much on the relationship between the herds. If it's herds that are closely related to one another, often the meeting is a fairly ecstatic affair. If, however, they're meeting around a limited resource, such as a water hole, often the herd arriving will displace that herd and push them off.
Next thing, all hell just broke loose. And of course, the two contestants were absolutely amazed. They just couldn't believe the sheer power and ferocity of these animals.